long as I can stand it.
Well, son of a bitch, here we are.
Woo!
All right. So what's the deal? Do you guys have tinfoil hats? I don't. I've got a
You got a
USA
camo
hat.
hat.
I guess it's kind of the same thing.
I'll do a camo tinfoil hat next week, I promise.
I'm just trying to keep
metal plate in my head.
Corona.
Does the metal plate in my head count?
That works. Yeah, that'll do the job.
That'll keep the Rona away.
That will definitely keep it away.
All right. Well, live stream up and running 20 minutes late. Not a big deal.
Not for the lack of trying. I just want to point that one out. Not for the lack of trying.
Right.
Yeah. Freaking troubleshooting. And by the way, you know, the only way to fix this, reboot. I mean, talk about 40 years worth of shit. All of our advances of technology. The only way we fix it still is to reboot it.
It's true.
All right. I can't leave this on there for too long because the unicorn's going to possibly fall off again. And my little green man, I don't want to lose my little green man. And I
Chris, you look like a cowboy.
I look like a cowboy. All right, might look.
Yeah.
Freaking Ryan looks like a moose. I mean, he literally looks like a tin-foiled moose. Somebody somewhere in Canada is going, I remember doing that to a moose one day.
I know. I'm afraid to look at that video. I'm thinking about hiding it because it's making me feel really uncomfortable. What do you have, Omega up there? Right here?
That's ohms. Because without, the ohms keep the 5G from bringing the Rona into my head. And then having,
Nice.
Thoughts of the space aliens abducting me away to, Republican land. Or Democrat.
Do you have a 5G? Do you have a 5G phone?
Well, see, I have a 5G phone, but I recently learned it could give me the corona. And so now that I'm taking a lot of precautionary measures, matter of fact, you see, I keep the corona away because I've got the full coverage.
You guys did some serious preparation for today's show. I showed up at 9:59, tried to kick off this damn stream. Fuck.
I love the Omega Moose. Somebody just called you Omega Moose. That's perfect. We're done. I'm happy now. We win. The internet has named Omega Moose.
So you have to get rid of that hat, and now you got to put Omega Moose on the side.
Omega Moose. I love it.
All right. So what are we going through tonight? We are going to have a long conversation. I'm going to take this off my head before it digs in anymore. All right. That's better. I'll leave it here. I'll take pictures of it for posterity later. All right. We are going to have a conversation. I'll probably turn the lights up a little bit as well at some point. We're going to have a long conversation about the wonderful world of conspiracy theories, especially considering we're charging into the 5G world with, gay abandon, basically. So I want to have the conversation about all the various conspiracy stuff. And this kind of came about because I ended up having an absolutely fantastic meeting with a retired general and Paul Ferrillo out in New York a couple of weeks ago. And we were talking about 5G, and we were having the conversations less about the conspiracy stuff and more about Chinese influence on 5G, the hardware side of it, the software side of it, where we're rolling, how to do it effectively, and what it means from a technology standpoint. In other words, what's the logic behind it? Why are we charging off down this way? And the irony of it is we, the US is looking at 5G, and you look at where Singapore is and Taiwan, and they're already planning for 6G. So we're still working on the conspiracy theorists for adoption of 5G, and, other parts of the world are just dogging so far ahead, it's not even funny these days. So I want to have a conversation about, let's start with why we're doing 5G and the logic behind it. Then I want to talk about, 5G in your health, 5G and COVID, 5G and killing trees and killing animals and killing plants and frying the brain and whatever, and aliens and implants and all that other shit. And I also want to have the conversation about all the BS around it and see if we can actually bring a little bit of sanity to this world at the moment that we deal with.
I love it. I'm going to play a little bit of a consumer angle tonight. So I want more G's.
Yeah.
More G's are better.
Yeah.
I got no problem with the consumer angle, because, you know, again, if I put my hat on from last week, the more of this I can sell you, and the more of this I can give you, the more of your data I can take and I can help you with, and I can help you plan and help you design and just help you in life. I want to.
Well, I don't know how else my city gets smart.
No,
see, I need my city to be smart. So
your city.
This is the wrong time. This is the wrong time to be talking about smart cities.
Your city definitely needs to be smart. Whatever's left of the smoldering part of the city probably needs to try to be smart. Yeah.
Smart and city do not go well together in 2020.
Not at the moment.
Not here, not now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh, look, there we go. No, I don't know if I like better. Let's go with that.
But, you know.
Yeah, this looks like I'm in my bathroom. I'm actually not in my bathroom, or maybe I am.
Yeah.
So, Ryan, you just give, if I'm the carrier, you just give me more G's and I'll give you more G's.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm happy to give you my G's
more your money.
for more of your G's, because it means I don't have to wait as long for my Facebook scam. It means I don't have to wait as long to get, you know, that picture or whatever. Now, as a consumer who happens to have a 5G phone, the rollout's not going so hot. It's actually, I'm having a bit of a shit experience.
Because you fuckers keep burning the towers down, you bastards.
No. That's Colombia. Isn't that Colombia that doesn't even have 5G?
UK was burning.
Bolivia. Oh, that was Bolivia. Bolivia burned down like 3 towers, and they don't even have 5G. 5G hasn't even been rolled out to Bolivia.
Well, you know, I mean, burning of cell towers always improves the quality of service.
Oh yeah, they were burning them. They were taking shit down. I want to say it was UK and a few other places. They were doing it as well.
UK, Sweden, I think Ukraine. I mean, they've been, and they burn them. I mean, they burn them down. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, towers going down.
Well,
so why would I want 5G? What's the advantage of having 5G? I'm promised faster speeds, right? How fast are we talking?
Not just the faster speeds. A lot of the things to think about on it, and this from a technical standpoint, a lot of the things to think about it is you've now moved a lot of the processing closer to the edge. So at the moment, if I want to have communications, let's just say 2 cars. If I want to have communications between those 2 cars, they still have to backcall all of those communications, decision-making, processing, everything else back to the back and go, hey, what are we doing? And then go back forward. So the whole concept of 5G is it moves that processing closer and closer to the edge. So the vehicle communications in the smart cities is now processed much faster, much quicker, more effectively without having to backhaul quite as much.
Right. Well, you can do it either way now. I mean, with 5G, right? Because you're not going to be constrained with bandwidth or latency or anything else, right? Latency is another big concern.
That's very much at the edge. So the density of those towers is going to determine how fast and how many. And I mean, you think about the amount of devices we have in our homes these days. We were just doing a pen test for a high net worth individual, and again, one of the colleagues is working on it, and he's like, I got 84 devices in this house. And I'm like, oh, that's just one subnet. Look at the other subnet. And there was like another 46 devices. I mean, that's just in one house. And that's just the stuff that we're seeing on 2 subnets, let alone some of the AV stuff and a bunch of the other crap. And so if you really start to take a look at it, all of those want to communicate with each other. And so much of that has to be hauled right to the back to the core. Whereas you want to push as much of that communication stuff to the edge and say, look, make your own fucking decisions.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so explain why I would need 5G to do that. Because I could do processing at the edge right now. Why do I need 5G versus 4G or LTE?
Faster. So the point, faster, bigger pipe, more
Gs.
Yeah.
More Gs. Well, and latency is always a killer too, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you can get big bandwidth in satellite communications, but the latency sucks. So, you can't stream.
But let's talk about that for a second, because latency is relative to several factors. and not all 5G is equal. So Chris brought up an interesting point about, the killing of trees and animals. Well, that's based on an idea that there are particular radio frequencies within the spectrum that are known to be harmful. We know this. We know that certain radio frequencies not so good for matter, right? The humans don't fare well, the animals, the plants, they don't fare well when those particular frequencies. So for example, T-Mobile chose to go with the 600 megahertz range. Well, I'm experiencing that decision. I'm experiencing large amounts of interference. I'm experiencing poor penetration in buildings. Because that frequency is not as good as some of the other frequencies. The problem is some of the frequencies that were being considered, I don't know if they're still in consideration, were on the edge of the spectrum of not so good for human life. And this is the root of the conspiracy. It's not that there isn't some element of truth within it. It's where that then evolved and devolved into, 5G is going to give me the Rona because, that's how viruses and radio frequencies work. And I think, but there is some validity to that. And some of the original spectrums, like I said, those were not necessarily the greatest. So,
yeah. Well, so it's interesting. Again, you look at the conspiracists and you look at where they point to some of how technology has over time influenced animals, birds, and various other things. And there's definitely, to your point, you start looking at that and you're like, okay, there's been a couple of issues where, mass birds have been found dead. Animals, in fact, actually even up in your general neck of the woods, there are a whole bunch of deer at the turn of the century that found dead. And technology was, it was all because of tech and it was all because of the telegraph and stuff like that. And the frequencies. So we've always had something like this. And it's actually interesting. You start taking a look at some of the frequency ranges that they are using, you realize it's not even going to pierce the skin, let alone the density of the skull.
Right.
Stuff like that. And so, but until you sit there and you take that step back and go, okay, let's take a look at this one. Let's take a look at, what frequencies are being used. Let's take a look at how they penetrate, what they penetrate. We all heard the stories, where I remember in the military, they were like, some of the big, powerful towers, they're like, don't stand in front of those things for too long because, and if you look at it, absolutely, there's some potential there. But man, you got to be stood in front of that thing for a long fucking time.
Well, in terms of frequency, it's a completely different, it's 28 gigahertz
right
for 5G, right? Your 4G was 700 to 2,500 megahertz?
Yeah. So
you're not even, we're different, right? Totally different range. So I think that's another thing that leads people to be like, well, what the hell? This is so far out. And I don't think there was 100, I can't remember, like 100 some odd, 180 maybe, scientists that when 5G was first sort of developed and talked about, that had written a letter recommending that you hold off until you test. What's 28 gigahertz do to the human body? And I think that's prudent, but the tests were all, there were no health effects.
So the other part of that, when you start looking at ionized versus non-ionized, and you look at how often have I love it. It's a lot of fun, but I'm kind of warped in that way. You kind of hang out underneath those really the high power lines, the electrical current lines, and you just hear those things crackling and crunching and humming along quite happily. And you start taking a look at like some of the radiation capabilities and what's coming off of those things. Then you go, okay, well, hang on, what's actually happening with that? And then what spectrum are we influenced by? How much do we know about the influence on this one? It's really interesting when you start taking a look at, which is why you have some of the safeguards around some of those sites, because you don't want to be hanging out for them too long or hanging around them too long.
Right. And I think the military had some issues, and I think some weather.
Yeah, actually Jason said it up in NorCal, in front of the dishes on cold nights to stay warm. I'm like, I love it. But yeah, there's been a bunch of those kinds of stories, definitely.
Well, there's interference. There's interference, I think, with some satellite communications. There's some interference from weather communications, but that's normal. You would get that with any radio wave, right?
And we know we're exposed to all different types of radiation. right? And different, you yourself produce radiation. And, it's interesting. We talk about 5G, but what I'm waiting for is the study that comes out in 40 years that says that the old school tube TVs.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the CRTs. No, do you remember those CRT monitors? Those CRT monitors were hellish. They were.
You could feel the radiation.
Yeah, I mean, you could look. I mean, you would do it. Yeah.
Yeah, when the hair would stand up on your arms.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite was we had one of those old console TVs, and you'd pop it on, and it'd go bong. And when you shut it off and get that peak, get that point, and it would just glow. It just glow for whatever, 30 seconds, whatever. It's just glowing.
I always remember
that. I have a feeling when the story finally comes out, we learn that wasn't good for us, right?
Yeah, those are going to be especially. I mean, everybody. You remember years and years ago before we had all the LCD stuff. Everybody was like, "Oh, I've got a 27-inch CRT," and I'm like, "That's nice for you. I mean, nice suntan."
Right.
No, not good. Don't want to do that. And I think part of the whole conspiracy thing is, and this goes back to the 5G stuff for me, a lot of this comes back to we don't fully understand it. We can't see it. We can't touch it. It's not tangible. If it's not tangible, I need to be able to explain it in a way that I understand it. I need to rationalize it or not rationalize it, as the case may be. And unfortunately, so many people, if they can't grasp it, they will go off onto this left field, and somebody's going to blame something about it. And that's where I'm like, I do wish we wouldn't do that all the time.
Yeah. Well, but you see that happen everywhere, where people rush to judgment, especially with things that they don't understand, right? 5G just takes one person, and 99.9% of the population has no idea what 5G does,
right,
how it works.
I
think if they knew more about how it works, they'd be a lot less prone to.
Well, what I don't get is everybody was cool with 4G.
And
then what was the tipping point there? One too many Gs?
No, because we had 5G was starting to build up. I mean, I remember being over in the Middle East towards the end of last year, talking to a couple of the telcos over there about security, and we started talking a lot about their 5G rollout and how they were and we got talking about not just the edge stuff, but the processing there, and then also how do we protect stuff back in the core? How do they push more security stuff out closer to the system so that all sorts of interesting, fun stuff. And they've been rolling it out for a while. And then same with China, Singapore, and everywhere else. And then the problem I think we had was a couple of things. One, we suddenly realized that China is a much bigger player, I think, than many people realized. And there was already this tension. Let's face it, we've had 3 years of bun fighting and more. But for the last 3 years, it's been a bun fest of fighting with that country. And we've realized that they pretty much so hold most of the Western Hemisphere's testicles in their hands with technology. And I don't think we like that. And then we've all of a sudden realized that we have this bloody virus, and we've been trying to roll out 5G, and everybody just went poof, and just put it all together and said, we've got problems this way. And you've ended up with a whole bunch of conversations. I mean, 8-10 years ago, you had a bunch of scientists. Some of the stuff we're doing with body area networks, scientists were working on how do viruses communicate? How could we utilize the body's communication capabilities in that electromagnetic spectrum in order for us to be able to communicate for some of the nanotech and biotech that we're putting in? So there'd been all this work done on how do we actually communicate with viruses, with pathogens in that spectrum. So now everybody's like, oh shit, they're rolling this out. They've already done the research. They know how to control it. And they put 1 + 1 and came up with 4.5.
Yeah, all right. I just don't get it. I mean, some of it is just so basic that it's like that's just not.
But it's basic because.
But it's just like it.
Go on, sorry, Evan.
It's just like it's just like anything though. I mean, if people don't understand things and you can tap into their fear, you can get them to do anything. You can get them to believe anything. I mean, you see it happening all over right now with politics on the left and on the right, and it's just all bullshit. And people have lost the ability, I think, in general, to use the left side of their brain and actually think things through, actually do the research yourself. Because if you did, you'd find out that 5G, you've already been living with microwave and satellite communications for many, many years. This runs at a frequency that's lower than that, right? It's penetrating than that. So you're living with this shit a lot stronger. Plus the sun itself.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the sun itself in the electromagnetic spectrum is way up around what? I don't know, theta hertz, right? I mean, it's way the hell up there. And you live with that, I think.
I don't think people think about it.
Well, they go outside.
But we see the sun. It's tangible. We see the sun. We see the effects of the sun to some degree. You know, it's tangible. What we're seeing, and again, this is a technology thing. We saw cell towers go up, and they were up every now and then, and we had some of the challenges in the early days of cell towers. I mean, there were challenges in the early days with cell towers with, again, what is it doing to plants and life and animals and all this other stuff. So we had some of that. But I think people got a little comfortable with it, and now they're seeing more cell towers and more, and that density. I think rather than it being a cell tower every, X amount of distance, it's a cell tower on every street corner, for want of a better way of looking at it. It's a pizza box or a set of pizza boxes on every street corner to get that density and to get the question. And I think people are suddenly going, hang on, it's a tangible invasion of technology that they don't fully understand. They don't necessarily understand. They see the benefits of for this kind of stuff, but because it's not theirs, they haven't invited it into their home. We invite the Samsung fridge in, we invite the television and the Apple TV and all the other crap that we bring into our homes, because it's not invited in and it's put out there by these big entities. I think there's a level of uneasiness, for want of a better way of putting it. And then that uneasiness, all of a sudden people go, well, hang on, what's happening with it? What's going on with it? Why is it? Oh, hang on, it's being put out there by Chinese companies or Japanese companies. It's being put out there by people that I keep hearing about are doing things against our country, or doing things that we don't want to hear. Well, hang on, why is that right on my doorstep? And that suddenly starts building up. And then it takes one person going, oh, well, I heard that there were a bunch of, there are a bunch of birds that died in upper Mongolia because they got too close to a 5G tower, as opposed to the fact the bugs just ran into whatever. And all of a sudden, it just snowballs. It's nuts. Ooh, did you just put a display up? You did. Oh, there we go. That's tremendous. Yay.
Yeah, and this was one of the most helpful graphics that I've seen, because you mentioned visible and invisible, so you can see that sunlight there in the visible range, but you can see where 5G fits right on this spectrum.
Yeah.
And then you think of radioactive, right? And you get X-rays. We don't subject ourselves to X-rays all the time, but you can see how far right on the scale that is. In terms of, health, because another thing I've heard too is, well, 5G is untested, right? We haven't tested it enough. We haven't given it enough test on human beings to really know. It's like, but you have with microwaves, you have with satellites, you certainly have with flipping the sun. Right?
Yeah.
So in terms of health issues, yeah, there's probably some health issue, but it's no more than the other, of the things you subject yourself to every day.
I mean, I think that's it. I mean, again, radiation is perfectly, another one of those perfect conversations is radiation. You think about it whenever you turn and say, hey, we want to build another power plant. Well, what about the radiation? And we want to do this. What about the radiation? What we tend to forget is the rocks around us. I mean, I live in rocky freaking mountains. Okay, some of those buggers, some of that granite and some of that shit, I mean, it is literally, hello, irradiate me. I mean, it's that. We have so much of that, and we tend to forget that. We tend to forget that we subject itself in so many different ways. Back to the phones that we have, the monitors, the screens, the systems, so much of what we have these days. Again, we can't see it. It doesn't feel like it's tangible. And yet, the 5G, at least on the US side, has definitely, I think, unfortunately, it's come at the same time. I mean, again, not getting political, we have had tensions with China for many, many years. No two ways about it. But it definitely seems to have ramped up in recent history for a bunch of different reasons. Trade reasons, other reasons, and the fact that we've got two parties that honestly need fucking heads and neck together. irrespective of all that, that's come on the back of it. Then you end up with a technology that a lot of people don't fully understand, and the more dense side of it, and then you get coronavirus thrown on the top of it, and everybody goes, well, hang on, coronavirus potentially started in China, and China's the one that's running, 5G networks over the world, and you're like, oh, fuck.
So here's a question.
Yeah.
How much of this is crazy, like genuine crazy? And how much of this is I'm so desperate to glom onto anything that might seem like it gives me an explanation for the experience I'm currently having circa 2020? Like, because I think about that. I think about how the drug and alcohol rates have shot up, right? Like, I just read this article about a guy that was like, yo, so I kind of turned into an alcoholic in like a month.
Yeah.
Like, I was good, and then I wasn't.
Yeah.
And it's the isolation. And so how much do you think this is like bona fide tinfoil hat? And how much is, I don't know, I'm overwhelmed, I'm confused, I'm scared, I'm looking for anything, and somebody put together an argument that somewhat made sense to me. So I'm going to latch onto it with dear life.
I think they both play off of each other, man. But I think because it's my own, mental health, that's why I did that. I wanted to do that series because shit changed overnight, man. I mean, it was like, and it was even crazier, I think, for people like me, because when I went on a cruise at that time, right? So when I left on the cruise, I had heard of coronavirus, but things were somewhat normal. Shit hadn't been canceled all over the place. And in the course of like 7 days, I get back into port. I turn my phone back on and I'm like, wait, school's canceled? Wait, all sports are canceled? Concerts are canceled? What the fuck happened? It was so fast that I think it's really easy to interject all kinds of different things. And people are trying to make sense of shit. I don't know. I made like 150 spreadsheets of coronavirus data trying to figure out what the fuck is this? Not data about the virus, but data about our response to the virus. So I think, yeah, it makes you a lot more susceptible to all kinds of shit. I'm just trying to make sense of the world. And if you're going to give me something that that helps me make sense of it, maybe I'll latch onto it,
So, I mean, again, okay, so we've taken it for granted. So here's an interesting one. I'm just talking with, just watching some of the conversation with like Jason and some of the conversations on here. Think about it. We had these cell towers were, a long way apart, distance apart, and they kind of blended in, and we really didn't think about it because we weren't reminded of them every step that we went. Now, when you look at it, I was actually looking at a story here, there's a bunch of wireless towers less than 30 feet from people's front doors. These are the 5G towers or the 5G micro towers, less than 30 feet. So every time you open that door, it's looking at you. It's right there. And so at that point, that brain triggers and goes, what's it doing? Why is it there? What's the reason for it there? What's the logic for it there? Then you turn around and go, okay, there's a whole bunch of organizations out there, the Grassroots for American Technology, have formally requested that this country takes a step back and evaluates the RF frequency issues and challenges that we're having. So when you turn around and go, okay, so hang on, I've got one of these fucking pizza boxes 30 feet from my house, 10 meters from my house. I've got a bunch of grassroots organizations that are calling for an RF disagreement and conversation around this. This thing's pointing squarely at me. What the fuck is going on? Because people don't necessarily take the first, second, or third level step to actually do some of their own analysis. They don't go, the reason it's pointing at me is because I got 100 freaking devices that don't need 20, 50, 60 millisecond. They need 2, 3, 4 millisecond round time delivery on some of the information. It needs to be near instantaneous information delivery and responses. And I want that because, to Ryan's point, I want all the G's. I've put all this shit in my house. I want
all the G's.
Yeah, I put all this shit in my house. Why is my Netflix running slowly? Why can't I get high definition, extra high TV shit from hell on my screen? Why can't I have 10 screens running at once, streaming all the media I want? Well, you can, but you can have a pizza bot 60 feet from your front door doing that shit.
Right.
And I don't think people correlate that. Or if they do, they don't take those 3 or 4 extra steps to go, well, hang on, is it a problem? Do I look at the grassroots movement? Do I look at the FCC? Do I go talk to Jason Rogers, and do I go talk to Verizon and go, hey, talk to me about this logically? And if they do they then trust them? That's the other problem.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head too. People don't do research anymore. Yeah. People just latch onto whatever. You see it all the time. Like, people will outright say a complete blatant % lie, and then people will latch onto it and run with it. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's not even close to being true.
Right.
I think the same thing happens with 5G. The same thing happens with all kinds of shit, right? I mean, just like think for a minute, or just go blindly like the rest of the herd, but if you're going to latch onto something that goes counter to the herd, I suppose you better. I posted something on Twitter too this week about defending position, right? Typically people that can't defend their position, go, well, typically what they do is they attack others or they change the subject.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right? But be prepared to defend your position. If I'm going to go out tout that 5G is bad for your health, well, then you better have some damn data to support it.
Yeah.
But you don't need that anymore. See, that's old school thinking.
I
don't need data. I need sensational. Give me sensational. Give me 10 seconds of bullshit.
But listen, dude, but then it's up to us. It's up to us who are thinking to call that shit out. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we do the shit show. It's like, no, defend this because it's wrong. I mean, that was one of the things that was so cool last week about you playing the devil's advocate, Chris, was watching you defend your position, knowing that your position was shit anyway.
Yeah.
But it was cool.
It definitely took some work. That was one of those ones I stepped away from that one. I'm like, oh, my head hurts. But it was a lot of fun doing it.
But I think, and because I go through life like that, and I think a lot of security people do actually. A lot of security people I talk to can defend their position, especially ones that have been around for a while. Because, if you give up and go up and give a talk, I remember some of the first talks I ever gave, I was scared shitless because I was like, what if somebody calls me out? What if somebody, challenges me? Will I be able to defend my position? Will I be able to be like, well, actually, try to get into that habit of doing that in just life, right? Defend your position. Why are you making the decisions you make? Rather than just blindly like, yeah, 5G is going to everybody. I'm going to go tell my kids and my, friends.
Well, all right. So I got another one for you. So 5G is a government surveillance operation. It's so that it can see inside my home and tell what I'm doing and when. That's why the 5G. And they're hiding the fact that they're doing that by giving me more data to distract me.
Oh, are we all special snowflakes that the government cares about all of us, all 330 million of us? We only have, what do we have?
Remember, consumer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. No. I mean, you'll find as a consumer. I mean, we only have, what do we have? We got the data center up in Idaho. We got the data center down in, what's the one? Salt Lake City, whatever the hell. What's that?
They don't have a name for that one other than, what is it?
I'm sorry, Chris. What state did you say?
Whatever the hell it is in Salt Lake. Where's that?
Utah.
Thank you.
No, what's the name of the state that you just said?
Oh, Idaho, Boise, neck of the woods. They got the data center.
you said Idaho. Say it again.
Oh, Idaho or Utah?
I'm just kidding. I'm giving you crap. Because you keep saying you're the hoe. You kept saying you're the hoe.
Oh, Idaho. Oh, no, that's...
Out of him.
Oh.
I'm a hot pimp. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Couldn't help it.
Oh, good. I mean,
I got a buddy of mine who lives in Idaho, and I make him do that too. I'm like, I'm sorry. What did you say, Kevin?
Oh, that's funny.
Idaho. Yeah. Are you sure? Yeah, Idaho. All right, just making sure you're the hoe.
I mean, we only have a certain amount of data that we can bring in at a point in time, let alone try to figure out what to do with it.
I'm not going to say Oregon. Oh shit! I just said it. Damn it. Social engineer.
Oh, funny. Evan, there we go. Evan should say, yeah, there we go. You got him.
I just got socially engineered. Just saying something I shouldn't.
Engineered. You totally got engineered.
All right, so sorry, I totally took us off track.
No,
Talking about surveillance.
We're on stage.
So wait, there's a little bit of validity. There's a little bit of validity to that theory, right? So
you know what shut up
is there?
Only from the technical perspective that you can use radio waves to gain a very low resolution visibility.
We've done that for years. I mean, years. I mean, fucking, never mind that. We've done that. We've taken your keyboard shit. We're able to monitor. I mean, we've done that. We had that with Ant Farm that we did. I mean, shit, we built that, a amount of years ago. And then some dickhead third party in our friendly agencies so problems with third parties decided to release the stupid shit, dumbasses. Anyway, discussion on that one another day. We've been able to fuck with that for years. The same thing we've been able to pull off signals off of power cables. We've been able to ingest.
High resolution. This is HD.
So 5G gives me HD spying capabilities. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. And you want that. Because see, before I was only a stick figure to you and you couldn't tell what was in my hand.
That is true. Now I can tell.
Before you were just a standard definition.
Right. I was just SD.
But I mean, honestly.
Well, now you're XD, my friend.
Okay, now hang on. Let's go back to last week. You and your fucking Alexa's listening. I don't need 5G to find out what you're doing. You've brought the listening devices in. I don't need anything else. You've given me everything I want. You buy a Samsung fridge and television that's got internet-enabled bloody voice activation shit.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, 13 years we've been carrying these shit around for it. You want me to spy? I got you covered. I don't need any. I don't have any space to put any more information about you. Stop giving me more fucking data.
Yeah, totally. So for anybody who's making your point, and just say what Chris said. We already got it, or they already got it. Not we.
I mean, that's it. And seriously, if it's at a point where I need to understand that, I'm just going to send a team in to visit you. It's simpler, easier, and a whole lot less hassle. Let's be honest.
Yeah, a door knock does a lot more.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you make friends and influence people.
My buddy Bobby's his favorite tool. He used to collect money. He used to be a money collector for bad people.
Got it.
And his favorite tool was a 9-iron.
Yeah.
And he would tap you on the shin to get your attention. That'll wake you up.
We used to carry a pipe.
That's right.
Yeah. Doesn't take many fingernails and many fingers before, because I mean there are 3 sets of bones you can break in every single finger, and if you hit them right, you can break them one at a time. Doesn't take too many of those.
Not just that. My daughter once broke the tip of a finger and she passed out.
It's amazing how, I mean,
completely out of control.
Yeah, you got 3 bones in every finger. I mean, that's 30 hits on just the hands. We haven't even talked about what we can do to your shins or your toes or any of that shit. Believe me, if I want information,
pressure.
Yeah.
10 pounds of pressure and downward force. You don't hear so good anymore.
No, I don't need to.
Right, Ryan. So did we dispel your spying thing?
Well, I think you did. Obviously, you haven't dispelled that the government is actively spying on every single thing I do of every waking moment. But maybe they're not using 5G to map the inside of my house.
No,
we
don't have to. The Roomba that you've got, that mapped it for us. We're good. We just subscribe to iRobot's, fire hose of data. I mean, it's easier.
Can I tap into that API right quick?
Yeah, pretty much.
No, you don't need it. You don't even have to go to the API. It's just an unsecured container. I mean. Here, let me just send it to you in the chat.
Yeah, it's just so okay. Yeah, all right. Let's take a step back on this one and actually I say? Let's be, can I spy on you faster? Yes. Can I retrieve data more effectively? Absolutely. And I think the other thing is can I retrieve it from more devices? Maybe that's another way of looking at it. I mean, 5G, if nothing else, 5G gives me the ability to actually pull data back from more devices. Now, you want to get really fucking sneaky, and this is where we could have that 5G conversation. If I am sending in a NOC team, you want me to use a spectral analysis of where you are in the room based off of how you are interfering or interacting with those waves? Hell yes, I'll use 5G for that. Do I give that technology to every police department? No.
Right. Well, the data you'll get is more real time too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But again, 2 seconds.
Yeah, but they got handhelds for that, and they have for.
I know, and that's the thing. It goes back to that. Not every single. I mean, I think that's again. You go back to the folks that are very concerned about conspiracy theories. I've had a couple of interactions with some interesting folks in these last few months who are definitely getting a little bit further down the rabbit holes, and I'm like, look, if you're that special, number one, you'll never know. If we want to watch you, you're not going to know we're there. And if you do figure it out, it's because we want to let you know that fact. So let's start with the easy one. Number one, you'll never know. Number two, really, if you've got anything that important to hide, probably not, to be perfectly honest, on most cases. Again, I'm looking at the stupid shit that Jesse and I and a bunch of us are doing in the box. It's like, okay, we're fucking around with this, we're messing with it. Then I'm going to care. I'm small fry. You want to go after somebody, you go after the folks that are manufacturing meth by the lorry load. Big difference in there. And by the way, 5G isn't going to make any freaking difference their way because they're probably using disposable freaking telephones that are using as analog as possible as possibly they can get away with. So, that's where we look on that spectrum.
Yeah, but I heard that 5G makes the meth better.
It makes it faster.
Compresses at the atomic level, it's compressing those atoms. The frequency waves are interacting at the atomic level to compress the ecstasy together to become it more and more effective.
That's what makes it blue.
You don't even have to smoke. And nowadays you don't even have to smoke it, inject it, or spit it. You just get it wirelessly.
Wireless meth. Don't put that. Now that's in the air.
That's in the air. We're screwed because now there's going to be some people figuring out how to do that shit. Again, it's all down to frequency waves.
Well, you'd have to have some pretty high frequency shit to make that happen.
That one, yeah, you're microwaving somebody at that point.
On the spy front, though, Ryan, you do have a point because one of the things that has talked over and over again is Huawei in China.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So why isn't China involved? Why are we freaking out about China involved? And I think there's some legitimacy. Is it conspiracy or is it legit? Because, we're talking about their components, their implementations, and we know that Chinese like their data.
In all fairness, I will simply say divide by zero Intel chip. Tell me how this is different.
I'm sorry, say that again.
So divide by zero flaw in the Intel chip. Tell me how this is any different. As if this is the first go at selling somebody equipment that's been designed to surveil them. I'm sorry, is this new? I thought we've been playing this game for about 30 years.
Oh my God.
Or longer.
Or longer, yeah.
But if you have the chips, if you control the network, if you control the network, it's not just data collection.
Absolutely. So taking off the hat for a second, you're 100% right. It is, but I go back to when we put this out in the world and it came back around to us, now we want to be mad about it. You know what I mean? What you think there weren't compromised telegraph machines?
I'll go one better than this. Fuck this for a second. Okay, let's just go one better than this. And we've got a few folks online who can probably do a little bit of research for us. And might or might not want to say anything. Jason might actually recuse himself from this one. Let's just take a simple example, okay? Worst case scenario happens, all right? all of a sudden somebody decides to launch a bunch of nukes against us. Where are, in the ground in the continental United States, where are most of the nuclear weapons?
My neck of the woods.
Do what?
My neck of the woods.
Yeah, your neck of the woods and my neck of the woods. So basically Colorado, all the way up through basically all of that, you know, the Cheyenne, the Wyomings, the Dakotas, all that neck of the woods. Okay, so that's all that. So let's take that next step. If I'm sitting at StatCom or any of the others, or I'm sitting down at NORAD, and all of a sudden I go, motherfuckers, somebody's launched against me, and I have to issue a launch, or I have to do something about that. Whose current telco equipment is that running over local to those regions? Who owns your local telco? Whose local telco equipment is that already? Sure as hell isn't US's.
It is not.
Sure as hell belongs to some people in a faraway land already. So we're worried about 5G communications. We've already handed over the ability for us to launch our, potentially, some of the capabilities for us to launch some of our most interesting assets and things that go bang to potentially running across networks that aren't even our chipsets or architectures.
Right.
What the fuck are we worried? They already have everything they need. Why not just, you know, why not?
Well, there's some truth to that.
Yeah, devil's advocate for the minute.
Well, but thank God those networks aren't just connected to any other network, right? I mean, there are so many controls and protections in place between that chipset and anybody who could control that chipset.
Oh, I'm not saying somebody taking them over. What I'm saying is somebody interrupting our ability to do our job. I'm not saying that somebody's going to launch them on their behalf. I'm saying the signal won't get from point A to point B.
Well, God, I hope they've tested.
I'd be really interested.
Well, they ride on the same telco. Dude, it's the outsource. Are you kidding? All that shit got outsourced.
Well, it doesn't run on the same telco. Maybe the same equipment, but not the same telco.
Look, it's really simple. If the guy guarding the entrance to the base is a private contractor, what do you think the rest of it looks like?
And so Jason just said something, and I wasn't sure if Jason would say something because I wanted to be very careful about some of this, because I just wanted to be careful about some of this. But if you really think about it, and honestly, this isn't a case of somebody else launching our stuff. I mean, there's so many controls in place for that. It ain't even funny. It's the fact that, you know, basically Stratcom or somebody picks up the phone going, motherfuckers are launch ours. That message doesn't get to the holes in the ground. Right. Because of all of the telcos and all of the domestic / foreign / outsourced and all the other stuff that's out there, and who owns all of this stuff.
No, they're going to end up having to default to shortwave.
Yeah. Well, hopefully. Yeah. Who's got another 25 cents? Fuck it.
No, you got to turn the crank to fire it up. Come on now.
Yeah. Who can remember their Morse code for fire the motherfuckers? But I mean, that's where it gets interesting. So we all get concerned about having, and maybe this goes back to the fact a lot of that has happened behind the scenes. A lot of that has happened in a way that isn't obvious to us.
Right.
You know, very rarely does anybody think that this device is made in a foreign country. We just don't think about it. It's provided by Apple or Android, you know, very American.
It's made by Apple at my shopping mall.
Right, exactly. And that's it. It's made by Apple. It's made by whatever. They've got all sorts of QA process.
They're an American company. It's an American product.
Exactly. And so we think that way. And so it's not obvious to us that, quite honestly, a lot of the control has already been taken out of our hands. And so when it becomes more obvious, when we do walk out of our door and 60 feet away is a Huawei 5G antenna pointing at my front window, that becomes a much more obvious and a much more in-your-face reminder that that we don't necessarily have control of our destiny anymore.
Yeah,
it's not a nice reminder.
Sad but true.
Brilliant, and I think that's one of those things that we don't think about quite as much. You know, and I'm not saying that I'm not blaming China. I mean, I'm not I mean, there are so many other people in that playing space where we are an adversary too, no two ways about it. But let's face it, I mean, that country and that region, you know, China, Taiwan, Singapore, Korea, and a bunch of others are such a powerhouse. And India, I mean, you look at what India is doing and the human powerhouse that they have, that I wonder if some of it is because the US has been the powerhouse for so long that it's getting reminded that maybe it isn't quite where it wants to be, feels like it should be, feels like it needs to be, isn't the master of its own destiny anymore. And I wonder if that's some of it. And again, this is coming from somebody, again, from very much of a European viewpoint.
Perhaps, and one would argue that a lot of that is rooted in the theft of intellectual property and the, you know, infection of our think tanks with operatives and agents, and you know,
how much have we done though? How much of that have we done too?
And I go back to it. I've said it before. I don't know why everybody's upset now. I don't know who you think started this war.
Yeah.
But it wasn't them.
No.
You know?
Elections are a really interesting one. There's actually an independent study, a very independent study, and I can't remember how many it was. It was like of the last 160 elections, the US has been implicated in like 100 of them. So we all get upset when somebody attacks our system, and rightly so. I won't ever say that we shouldn't do it, but it is a bit like the pot calling the kettle black on this one. We are very, very good at doing it to others.
But
we should be better.
But that's the. But why would I care about? That's the way the game is played. Why I want to win. If my team is doing these things to win, well then, I have no problem with it.
Are we winning though? This is the question in the digital.
Well, that's the problem. Are we winning? I don't know if we're winning, but the fact that we were doing those things started this that doesn't necessarily concern me. I don't feel guilty about it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I wonder if that's.
But yeah, I don't think we're winning.
No, and I wonder if that's a hard thing. I mean, again, you know, okay, I'll put my British hat back on for a second. I'll keep the Scottish one off because we've had our asses handed, unfortunately, for a wee while. But I'll put the English hat on. We owned a large chunk of the world. Several hundred years ago, you know, we ruled the waves, we ruled the airwaves, we ruled over quite a lot of the world, quite a lot of it. We had a big old chunk of the world. It was an empire. And then you fast forward to now, and we're a pokey little country in the middle of the Atlantic and the North Sea. We've walked away from a union of European people, for good and for bad on that one. And we wave our flag as if we still own rather a lot. And literally what we have is the UK and a bunch of little fucking islands in various places. It's not a very nice feeling to go, we once had it all, and now we have a soggy, damp island in the middle of the North Sea. And so people don't like admitting that. People don't like thinking that. People don't like taking that step back and going, how do we make it better? How do we do it differently? How do we do something more effectively? And I feel, you know, again, inside the US, I look at how the US is, and again, the conspiracy theories and everything that's going on. And I wonder if some of the drive and some of the anti-this and anti-that is driven by that fact that you're not really the masters of your own destiny to some degree. It's being led by, you know, Ryan, the consumer, who says, I want more G's and I want them faster. And there are people in charge who are like, we're fucked. You know, we're handing everything over to foreign countries.
Right. Yeah. And foreign countries that aren't friendly. I mean, they're adversaries, right? I mean, when you talk on the global stage, to say that China is a friendly company, a friendly country, I don't know how you can say that when you look at the facts. Yes, they're friendly in terms of business, right? We do all kinds of trade. They rely on us, and we rely on them. But from a government perspective, there's always an ulterior motive. The reason why China welcomes all the business does they do, don't think for a second that that's where it stops.
Right.
Thanks for your business. And
and I think people are waking up to that. And I think maybe that's part of it as well, is if we didn't realize some of the business practices, some of the environmental practice, the apparent genocide that's happening with some of the northern tribes, the Tibet shit show, let's be perfectly honest, etc.
Right.
Because we're becoming more and more aware of that, I think it just compounds the fact that, again, I open up my front door, 60 feet in front of me is a Huawei tower pointing right at me. I'm looking for excuses. I'm looking for reasons to tear that down and put an American one in. Jason's on there. I want to put was he with Verizon? I want to put a Verizon one in. Yeah, I want one with an American label, with a Verizon label, made by, Micron up in Idaho, or I'm not saying it again, or down in Salt Lake or something like that. I want it stamped that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, we used to have a robust printed circuit industry in this country.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yes, we did.
And then everybody figured out that was really expensive and bad for the environment.
Yeah. And then so we hoofed it off to a country that didn't ask so many questions and gave it to us cheaper, faster, and more often than not, it worked most of the time, and it's gotten a lot better, and it's still cheaper. And we don't ask them about those chemicals they use, and we don't ask them which mountains they're destroying or which villages they're taking. We conveniently have not dealt with those questions. We don't ask where they get all their shit from and their labor and their people, and we just accept the fact that, hey, I get more G's.
That's it, man. It's this insatiable consumer desire. It's never enough. It's never enough. It's never enough. It's never enough.
Well, that's why we're called consumers, because we consume.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about how many rare elements are in a cell phone, and the average home in America today, if you open the junk drawer, you will find a pile of cell phones. See, case in point. Box full, right?
Apple TVs, older ones. iPod, cell phone, old iPhone, another old iPhone, another old iPhone, another old iPhone. Yeah, that's just one drawer.
And in there, is a ton of rare material that we are running out of, that we're happy to trade whatever we're happy to trade. I think it's funny though that you say, an American label on it. The fact is, we don't have the infrastructure anymore to produce the amount of chipsets needed to even do a 5G rollout in this country in a timely fashion, let alone the fact that, let's be honest, some of those components come with, restrictions on who can make them and where they can be made, because there's intellectual property around those components.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I was gonna disagree with the fact that we don't have the infrastructure to do it in a timely manner. I think we do. We get in the way of ourselves, right? We put so many roadblocks in front of ourselves that we won't enable ourselves to do it.
So I'm going to challenge that. You think we have enough operational printed circuit factories in this country today?
You said within a short period of time. I think we could build them in a short period.
Fair enough. Yeah, if we did a ramp up, I'll buy that. I'll buy that.
I think we ramped up. We
Part
could.
of America is still true. If we really want to get it done, and we really make it a priority.
Now, who's going to go out shopping for the mountain that has the rare metals that we need for the connectors and all the other shenanigans that might not have already been bought by 4 other countries?
Well, that's what I trade my blood diamonds for.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I got these blood diamonds and these keys of coke that I'm going to trade to get that rare.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, where's the technology in why wouldn't we be able to? I mean, I can't figure it out because I'm not there, myself. But why would we need? Do you think we could wean ourselves off the rare metals to produce the technology? Or, I mean, we can create fake diamonds now. Could we create them in a lab?
So when we get to crystalline, light-based processing, when that is achieved or declassified, or however you want to look at that.
Yep.
then yes, Evan,
because now I don't have to think about
do away with the heavy metals, because at that point you're calculating states of photons, not electrons.
But even if you stayed with photons and electrons, we can lab create just about anything.
Okay,
so that comes down to an energy and cost equation. So I agree with you that we can synthetically produce, any number of substances required, but the amount of energy that goes into that synthesize of those materials far outweighs the consumer's ability to then purchase said product.
So here's the challenge.
And I would agree in Rev 1, Rev 2, Rev 3, you refine processes, get more efficient.
Fair enough.
Here's the problem at the moment. So again, we'll talk about American ingenuity for a second. I couldn't remember. I knew we could do it. I just couldn't remember the codes. We can synthetically produce gold. We have the ability to do that, but it's so prohibitively expensive, and the energy necessary to actually produce it, we would have to look at. And again, it's that cost equation. If I know I'm building, 10 million of these in the US every year, that cost equation drastically alters, because I'll use what I need to do it, and I can produce enough to justify the cost, yada yada yada, all that kind of good stuff. And I think that might be the case for a lot of the other elements, but it would definitely be interesting to start taking a look at it. Either that, we start mining the ocean floors. I mean, we've had those conversations numerous times with the nuggets that are down there. So,
well, that's the crazy thing about people, right? I hear people. I was listening to I like astronomy. I think that's cool stuff,
Yeah.
And I was watching a show, and my wife was fascinated by, I think they were talking about planets and other, potential planets and other galaxies, and even within the Milky Way galaxy. And my wife was like, wow, we know so much about the universe. And I'm like, I looked at her and I said, 85% of the sea floor has never been explored.
Yeah.
She's like, what do you mean by that? I said, we don't even know what the fuck's in our backyard. Everything, so much is speculation. I mean, but it goes to show how many things we think we know that we don't really know.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, so there's a really, really freaking good book. I'm actually rereading it because I just love it. It's a fantastic book. You should give it to your young lady. What's it called? Where's it gone? I'm in the middle of my Terry Pratchett book here for the minute. Get out of there. Go back. It's called We Have No Idea.
I would love that book.
You know it?
I love that book.
It's amazing. I freaking love it. It's one of those ones. I mean, part of my background is that stuff, but I just love it. I love how they explain it. I love how they have conversations around it. It's just fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, we want to talk about the.
And that's one of the things I really. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go for it. I was just going to say, we don't understand. We can't even drill more than, what's the deepest hole we've managed to drill? 10 miles, 15 miles, whatever it is. We haven't even gotten past the crunchy bit on the outside of our own freaking planet.
Right. Well, and what I was, that's one of the things I love about the shit show. And, really a lot of the conversations I have, when you open your mind to other people's points of view, you learn so much shit. I don't know shit. But when I talk to you guys, I learn more shit. So I love the points of view. And I love the fact that we don't agree on everything. That's not the point. That's not the point of the shit show, is not to agree on anything.
That's not a fun relationship to have.
Right.
If I agree with you on everything, I have nothing to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Right.
What, for more affirmation of what I already know? Cool. I have the social media for that.
Yeah.
So I thought I hired you to be a yes man. What the hell?
Yeah, well.
I'm not getting my money's worth.
No. It's all going to tinfoil.
Nice. Omega man. We got to get you a cape now, too.
What the hell was my moose name again? Octomoose?
Omega Moose.
Yeah. Shit, brains on.
They're not moose ears. They're dishes for collecting the Rona and keeping it away from me.
We have to get you a cape, to a tinfoil cape, and we'll call you Omega Man.
I almost made a bodysuit.
Oh my gosh, that would have been hilarious. And a lot of
tinfoil onesie, and I decided that was just bad imagery.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to see that.
I'm actually looking up the precious metals that we use in phones to see what we can actually, gold, silver, copper, platinum, and palladium. The only one I'm having problems with, artificially dealing with, is palladium. Everything else I think we can figure out. And to that point, you can actually substitute palladium for platinum and other metals, but it's...
I say we just take the plunge and move forward with our image tech, move forward with using photons instead of electrons. We've already hit Moore's law. I don't care how many 3D layers you put on that stupid processor. It is not going any faster. You're telling me it's faster, but it's not. That's just parallelization.
I'm actually working on a project with some folks in places with entanglement, quantum entanglement. So we're actually taking a look at the ability to use communication capabilities at a quantum level. And the logic there, if you know the entanglement principles, it's you take, at an atomic level, you basically take an atom, you split it into two, and whatever happens on here instantaneously happens on this side, no matter where you put the fucking things. It's the only thing we've figured out that actually goes faster than the speed of light. And so we're actually working out how to actually literally gather these, entrap them in a substrate, which we can do so far, and then actually use them from a communication standpoint. It's really freaking cool stuff. So,
well, and what's interesting there is that is probably the only truly secure communication, because there is no intercepting. There is no good luck. That's not happening.
Exactly.
You can't. It's over before it started.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah. We actually.
Well, in terms of what you can think, in terms of what you can comprehend, in terms of what you know.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, right now. Given everything that we've thrown at it on the chalkboard, the whiteboard, and everything else, absolutely. But it was the same thing they were talking about. So the quantum encryption, everybody was talking about how quantum encryption couldn't be broken, and it was 6 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, maybe, that there's a theoretical paper that they can actually interfere with the way that the encryption algorithm, the quantum architecture is actually influencing the quarks, that they can now start to understand what's actually going. So quantum encryption has now been not necessarily broken, but has been influenced. So there's some really, really cool stuff out there. But yeah, the whole concept of entanglement is absolutely amazing. I love it. And again, to Evan's point, it's one of those where it's like, okay, in the known universe quantum architecture that we're aware of, we can't fuck with it. But we know so little about, we're only using 3 sets. Out of the 12 possible capable photons that we have, we're only using 3 of the fucking things. We have no clue what the others do.
Yeah.
We don't even know. We're like, we know they're there. No fucking clue what they do. None. Haven't found a use for them. Don't know what the hell use they are. It's awesome. I love this world as far as this goes. It's totally fun stuff. Anyway, yeah, sorry. Who's squirrel?
Well, and that's the fascinating stuff, right? The dangerous stuff is when you jump from not knowing to thinking that you know, or making it up.
Yes.
Right? That's when conspiracy theories come to play. When there's this thing that I don't understand, so I'm just going to make some shit up.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be like, oh, that seems to make sense. Fuck. And that's actually how theory works, right? You don't prove theories. You just can't disprove theories. Right?
Yeah.
That's what a theory is. And so if I just state some hypothesis and then claim this is the theory and you buy in, well, then it's a conspiracy theory.
Well,
right?
Okay. So here's the good and the bad part about that. My background is theoretical mathematics. So part of my background is, and I love it because I do get to make shit up, but I get to throw rocks at anything and try to disprove it given all sorts of set of criteria. But I don't do it in a vacuum. It's done with a peer group. It's done with a peer review. It's done based off of all sorts of tests of capability, quantifiability, and all sorts of other things. It's the same thing we're having problems with at the moment. We understand what mass is, but we don't understand what mass is. We absolutely don't. So we have a whole bunch of theories as to what mass is, and mass being the energy that actually binds the particles together. The particles themselves weigh fuck all. The energy itself, when those particles are combined, is what actually gives mass. But we don't know what the hell it is. And so we got a whole bunch of theories, and this comes into some of the shit show that we're messing around with at the moment on the entanglement stuff. And back to your thing about light physics, it's all the stuff that we think we know. So I love the theoretical side, but it's not done in a vacuum. We don't spew it out and hope for the best. It's done with a peer review.
Well, and you don't claim that your theory is fact.
Absolutely.
Your theory is a theory.
Exactly. And that, I think, is the big difference between this kind of stuff and the whole conspiracy theories. They're not even conspiracy theories because arguably they haven't been effectively peer reviewed. And a peer review is, I don't want all three. This is why I love this group. A peer review isn't three of us thinking the same shit, because that doesn't work. That's group mentality, or whatever it's called, herd mentality. That's not a peer review. That's yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Charging off the edge of the fucking cliff.
Right.
But and I love this because both of you are perfectly right, but you're up against this human, right? And this human is the one that gets up in front of a mic and says, "I don't wear a mask for the same reason I don't wear panties, because shit's gotta breathe." And to go and do that in a public setting, and then want to come over here and say, "So let me tell you about thinking before talking. Let me tell you about peer review. Let me tell you about."
Right.
Well, truly,
I'm just saying, again, consumer here, right? I was having this conversation the other day about the barrier to getting people, the everyday, regular, average Joe and Jane, to think differently about their digital life. And I ran into something I hadn't known in these terms before, but basically it has to do with cognitive function. And I think a lot of the conspiracy theories can't be seen as anything other than truth by people at a particular level of cognitive function. I think some of it is they literally can't do it. They lack the mental horsepower to unpack. I mean, think about what people believe. And
I don't want to believe that. I want to believe that people have the ability, that inner voice argues. I want to believe that everybody has that inner voice somewhere.
They do, but what I'm learning through this cognitive ability, if you will, right?
Oh shit, are you going here?
Is yeah, I'm going here.
I like that.
is that you evolve through stages. Now, by full disclaimer, I literally learned about this shit like earlier today.
Okay.
I didn't go to college. I didn't get exposed to a lot of stuff. So I'll find things that you guys got like boilerplate taught in school where I'm like, really? That's neat. And so this cognitive function, basically a child's brain is not well formed enough to do critical thinking. Okay.
Right.
Well, as your brain grows and matures as you age, ideally you move through these ranks. But some people don't. Some people never get out of the teen years or the early 20s or the whatever. And because they've not moved up the ladder of this higher cognitive function, they can't get to the level where they're able to do abstract thought, where they're able to do really critical thinking and critical questioning of the information they're presented. And while I'm with you that I too don't want to believe that that's true, it sure seems to make a hell of a lot of sense for the reality I see with my eyes.
So Keys just put something up on the channel, which is interesting. And I don't want to, it's interesting because I don't want to mess up IQ versus EQ versus cognitive and all that stuff. But I actually didn't know the stat. 1 out of 10 have an IQ of under 84. If your IQ is that low, you can't process information. The military won't even take you. And it's 1 out of 10, so 30 plus million people. I'm actually really interested in how close that, and yeah, Piaget stated cognitive development. Yeah, exactly. I'm interested. I didn't know it was that was the number. And it's an interesting one because I'm really sensitive to the IQ EQ thing.
Right.
Because I got hit with that years and years ago when I was in the UK with an ex who flaunted that she was a member of Mensa, and she told me what her IQ was, and I got that thrown at me numerous times. So one day I went, fuck it. And I went down and I did the online test, and then I got invited in and I did the inside test, and then I got invited back to another panel and did another set of tests. And I came out with a number. Cool. And then did the same in the US. And that's great. IQ is where it is, but that also doesn't mean I can put my fucking underpants on the right way all the time. And it sure as hell doesn't mean I can always function as I need to or possibly should function in society. So I'm really careful on that whole IQ cognitive functionality. And this goes back to I always want to believe that people have that inner voice, that secondary voice that does argue against the conspiracy. You know, on one hand, I want to believe that piece of box facing me is actually frying my brain. On the other hand, I'm like, I'm still here, my brain's not heated up, and I'm still going. Therefore, what the fuck am I talking about? But when you face statistics like that, you're like, you know, maybe 10% of the population doesn't have that ability, which kind of sucks and is a little scary.
Well, and I think,
well, and that's assuming you believe what he said.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's not true, but somebody who with reason and uses the left side of their brain would go and validate the statistic he mentioned.
How many people validate those? So, I mean, that's the other thing.
Well, it takes time.
You, me.
But we do. And again, that's us.
That goes back to, and so what I learned, and again, noob here, but what I learned so far is cognitive function and IQ, not necessarily a 1-to-1.
Right.
So you could, especially if you take a traditional IQ test, if you are a white male from a privileged family, you will score better because you will know things like certain boating terms that are part of the IQ test that unless you are a sailor or you have been exposed to these nautical terms, you're not going to know that stuff. And so I think, you know, I mean, the original IQ test was a 2nd grade test out of France. And we tout it like it's the greatest thing in the world, but you should like totally do your homework on it and realize it was made for gauging whether or not a 2nd grader had a shot in hell of making it to 3rd grade.
Maybe the 3rd grade, yep.
It's very cultural. But all that aside, as far as like, so there was the top of the stack, if you will, is metacognition.
Yeah.
And that's the ability to think about.
What'd you just call me?
I called you metacognition. Son.
I'm from Idaho.
Thinking about thinking, right? Well, that's what you have to do with a conspiracy theory. You have to think about thinking, especially if it's a really good one that's like super believable.
Yeah.
I've come across a few where I'm like, huh. And, you know, at a certain point, conspiracy theories and propaganda, do they really have much difference or are they truly one and the same? So, you know, when you run into that, you have to ask yourself, you know, does this story match? Two famous ones that affect our industry is when Atlanta had their magic power outage from a fire that didn't get responded to by a fire department. Interesting story there, right? The second one is, no, I forgot. Nope, ADD. I don't know. I don't remember what the second one was. That shit's gone.
You're good. I'm actually asking.
But
I still love you, brother.
The pink water. When all of a sudden the whole city, I think it was Philadelphia, had all this pink water coming out of the faucets. They're like, no, it's fine. You know, we don't know. It was something weird happened, and you know it was a large amount of the disinfectant got introduced in. Well, what controls that flow? Right. You know, and we see this all the time. We see cities getting ransomware to not really acknowledging it for days and days on end while they tell you a different story about what's wrong. So I think because we live in a society now where even the sources of truth are no longer telling us truths and we know it.
Well, and so, okay, then we take another tact on this one. So another unfortunate reality in society is our government, as will any country's government, our government's going to lie to us for our own good in some instances.
So
as any government does for its own good in certain instances, you know, and and I think that's where it gets really interesting as well, because now you have to take a step back and you have to go, okay, am I being lied to? for my own good, or is there something to this, or is there a denial in place? And perfect example, I mean, you think about some of the projects that have come out of Nevada and other test areas. You go back to the atomic era, you go back even further back than that, and all of the stories that were built around those deliberately to safeguard security, safety, humans, whatever else it needs to be. We still have that today. It's a lot harder, but we still have that today for a variety of reasons. And I hate to say it, the variety of reasons are because of the common good. It's like sometimes you just don't need to know all the shit that's going on. So there is also that issue that we have to dig through from humans that are sitting there going, I've been lied to for this and this and this and this and this. And now the government's telling me this. Why the fuck should I even believe them? And I've got to admit, there's a level, I can't say I freaking blame them. Jesse, good friend of mine, he's like, well, again, the masks thing, we have to talk about the masks. And he's like, look, he's like, understand the American perspective. He's like, first thing, it's masks. Then it's like, well, hang on, now we need to do an injection for everybody. Well, now we need to do this. And then, oh, by the way, now we're going to take some of your liberty away. And while we're doing it, you know what? Because we've got you here, you don't need all of your guns. And because we've got you here, you don't need all of this. And all of a sudden, it's one piece gets eroded after another. And he's like, we've seen it in the past. Why do you think we're concerned about it happening again? That's why we fight so hard right at the beginning, so that all of a sudden we don't look behind us and then realize the last mile of road's already eroded and we haven't got a way back. And I get the logic. It frustrates the hell out of me, but I get his logic on it. Because there have been, I mean, fucking Agent Orange and shit like that was putting, you know, you got the feds running around New York dispersing shit out of vehicles deliberately to test the population. That introduces all sorts of distrust that we haven't had that era of people die off, and the next layer of people, you know, our kids' come in and not have that worry that we're being lied to all the time. So right. You sit there and you're like, okay, what the fuck is actually going on? I don't know who's telling me the truth anymore. I don't have a source of truth.
And that is a very dangerous psychological position to be in when you're afraid.
Totally. Absolutely.
And, you know, I mean, you know my thoughts on it, tinfoil and all. I mean, yeah. That's intentional because, hey, how do I make a society malleable?
Yeah. Unstable. You keep introducing instability.
As long as you skirt or something, you ain't paying attention to what I'm doing.
All right. Hold the thought. Keep talking about this for a second, by the way. I'm going to go refill this with water and this with something interesting. This is awesome. I love this fucking conversation, by the way.
So what do you think, Ev? What do you, I mean, you know, greater good for society. Should we be more in the know, or should we continue to be in the dark and just accept that that's part of the program? You're on mute.
Fuck that.
There you go.
That's because I was doing other shit. No, I was listening to the whole conversation. I do listen, and I, you know, when I hear people tell me things, when I hear things, I always just come to a place where I just assume that there's a motive. Right? You wouldn't tell me anything unless there was some reason why you're telling me something. And so the same goes with government, the same goes with CNN, the same goes with Fox News, the same goes with everything. The same goes with my wife, my daughter. And it's not paranoia. It's the kind of questioning of why are you asking this? You know, so I also believe that there is no single source of truth outside of my own faith. Right? If I didn't have that, I think I would have already put a bullet in my head.
Oh, I'm right there with you. Jesus keeps me grounded. If I didn't have that on to try to make sense and heads and tails out of what's happening, absolutely. I mean,
Cthulhu keeps me grounded.
Oh,
there you go.
It's so cute. I love it. But
I just assume, like, if I'm told something and so then do research. Yeah. What is the motive? Why are you telling me this? Because either you're telling me something that I didn't ask you for, That's different than if I had asked you something and you gave me a response.
Right.
Right. When you're just telling me things and I didn't ask for any of the things that you're telling me, that's a clear tell that there's a motive behind what you're doing. Whether it's just to be nice or to, whatever the motive is. Like my daughter, she'll just come and tell me something or ask for something. It's like, well, what's the motive here? There's more to it than what you're saying, probably. And I won't dig and I'll let some things go, but some fights just aren't worth fighting. But when I read the news, I'm always thinking a motive, right? I do read Fox News. I do read CNN, right? But I know that there's motives. It's funny, you read, because they both claim that they're not biased. It's like, well, the fuck you're not. Who is not biased?
Everyone is biased about something, from something, towards something, right? That's inherent human nature.
Especially the people who claim that they're not biased.
How can you not be woke up today?
You're the most biased. Like I read that today that Don Lemon from CNN said that he's not biased. I was like,
so he's a robot.
You heard yourself talk? Have you heard yourself talk, brother? Because holy shit, it's biased.
Just saying. CNN is. Don Lemon isn't. See, you're getting the two confused.
Right. And I just hate how, people are so divided that they don't have just conversations. So sometimes you won't even let me get to your motivation. You won't let me get to what your real reason for asking the thing is, because if I ask you, you're going to take offense. You'll change the subject. And it's like, well, fuck, then it's not even worth talking to you, because you won't be able to defend whatever it is you're telling me anyway.
I think that goes back to your tweet, right? It's if they're not comfortable to defend the position, then there's only a couple of ways they're going to respond. And most people, I'll pick on my own father, right? So we're having dinner a couple nights ago, or he was over, I forget, it's all blurry now, but he was here, and my wife had made the comment about a certain politician being a known sexual assaulter. And he goes, show me the proof. And she proceeds to show him the proof. At which point he goes, I don't believe it.
Right. Yeah. It's just at some point
you won't be able to change views.
It's just, unfortunately, and that's my challenge with that one. And again, some of it comes down to the conspiracy stuff, is I can show you every shred of evidence that I have, and you're still not going to believe me. And so that at that point, you're like, okay, how do I deal with that? What do we do with that? How do I show you that 1 + 1 in this universe does actually equal 2? 99.9% of the time. And you don't want to believe me because you want to argue about that 0.01% of the time based off of the abstract circumstance of this and mitigating sun. And by the way, it's a high new moon. Okay, great.
That messes up math. Come on now. Every time.
No shit.
Well, and how long does it take? I wonder how long it takes to argue with fool before you become the fool.
If two people are yelling, I can't tell who the idiot is.
Yeah, that's...
Because I've spent a lot of time arguing with fools, and then I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You're the damn fool. You just pissed away hours. You're the fool.
Point. That's a really, really good point. Yeah, that is...
So I'll drop a lot of things like Twitter. I can't tell you how many times I've typed a Twitter response to something and then been like, no, it's gonna end up being that foolish fucking back and forth thing, and I don't want it. I don't have time for it.
Yeah, it's similar kind of mentality. I've gotten better over the years. I think I've gotten better. Maybe that is one of those things that comes with age / wisdom / gray hair, whatever you want to call it. Is you realize, back to what you said, it's like, I don't know where my end is. I have a finite amount of time, and quite honestly, I really don't want to have to argue with you about this. I understand your views. Good luck with them, and just leave it at that. Because you're something.
Yeah, and I think everybody deserves, that base level of respect. Even the people that you completely disagree with, that are 100% idiots.
Yep.
They may be saying the same thing of you, by the way. I'm not just saying, right? It's perspective.
Totally, yeah.
Like every Tuesday morning, I have a conversation or Wednesday morning, a conversation with somebody who has completely different political views than I do, right? Just completely different. And we have some of the best, most beautiful conversations because there's this respect for each other, right? And I go into the conversation with him knowing that I'm not trying to change his mind or change his views. I'm going into the conversation to have a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, so often we're doing that. So when you're fighting conspiracy theories, it's like you fight it. Whatever. I mean, you're not going to win.
Yeah, and that's so it's HHS. We got there's a couple of folks who we have very different political views, and I respect that. I absolutely respect it for a variety of different reasons. But again, we can actually. I'm stupidly fortunate. Sounds like the same thing. We can have good debates and do good discussions, and we can step into the other person's. I think this is the important one. The ability to each one of you step into the other person's shoes and see it from their viewpoint. If you can do that, I think that's actually fine. That's respectful. But I think part of my problem with, and the online stuff is a challenge, is when somebody doesn't even recognize another viewpoint. That's when it's like, okay, I love you. Good luck in life, and just leave it at that.
But doesn't it take a higher level?
And that's the
Doesn't it take a higher level of thinking to achieve the ability to see something from someone else's viewpoint?
No, I don't want it.
I suppose. Maybe.
No, why? No, it shouldn't.
It shouldn't, but doesn't it? How many times? Okay, here's my argument. So how many times do we have to explain to a child to see it from somebody else's point of view? To share.
In my house once.
Nice I feel that, but my point being, how many times as we're shepherding that mind do we have to encourage it? Do we have to explain it? Do we have to remind it that it has to see it? You have to see it from somebody else's viewpoint. And I'm suggesting that a percentage, and I don't have the number, but a percentage of this population who are gainfully employed as leaders of communities, as doctors and lawyers and other such people, lack the mental will or want, not ability. Or maybe it is ability. I don't know. But it seems to be a barrier to being able to put themselves in that headspace and say objectively, without all my emotions, I'm going to look at this from this other person's viewpoint.
Or maybe I understand your viewpoint so well that I can use it against you and manipulate you. You know, because I think
that's higher thinking. That to me, that's a higher level of thinking. If you're good enough,
but that's assuming that your theory is correct, right? That's assuming I don't know this theory. I don't know that.
I'm coming up with it on the fly, so it's open to debate and challenge.
You're right.
I think the problem is you're right, because I've had this conversation in other settings. Joanna Uders and the Bridges in Tech. I've talked about this, or we've talked about this in like the voice in somebody's head, and that secondary voice that makes you pause, that makes you think, that makes you question, that makes you reason. And Joanna's like, not everybody has that. And I'm like, I want to argue that. And it's, to me, it just seems, it's a basic thing. To me, it's just something simple. It's something basic. It's
conscience, right? Isn't that conscience?
I don't know what
that's more good and evil. This is more of ability to discern. I think conscious, for me at least, conscious is good and evil. It's I know this is right or I know this is wrong. I think what we're saying here is deeper than that.
So this is, for me, this goes back to, I put a LinkedIn post out a while ago, and it was
I'll keep listening. Keep talking.
Totally. I put a LinkedIn post out a while ago.
I'm the only one staying here today.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I needed more alcohol and more regular water as well.
No, man, I love it. All right, so tell me about your LinkedIn post. Sorry.
Yeah, it was a LinkedIn post, and it was a guy running, and it was a black guy running, and he was running, and nice backdrop and everything. He was running. I'm like, okay, what's everybody's first thought? Mm-hmm. And honestly, let's be perfectly honest. For most of us, especially most of us who are white, that first thought is, what's he doing? And then that second thought kicks in and goes, he's a guy out for a freaking run. Get over it. And that third thought goes, well, hang on, now process that. Okay, he's in this, he's doing this, he's doing this, he's doing this. And all of a sudden you reason and you logically come to the conclusion, and it happens very, very quickly. But some people don't have that ability to do that. Some people don't have that ability to argue with their biases or argue with.
That's true.
And I think that to me is where it comes in. It's not the good and evil thing. It's we all have biases, no two ways about it. But the ability to actually argue with those biases and do whatever you need to do with them, that I think is where a lot of it comes in. And apparently not everybody has that.
Like honest introspection kind of thing, like look at yourself in the mirror sort of thing.
Yeah.
You don't think all people have that?
I think that people are capable of it. I'll give you an example. I had a friend, and I basically had to teach him the concept of introspection. And
you said had, he's
post friend. People come and go. God opens and closes doors as he sees fit. But I had to teach him the concept of introspection because he just didn't get it. And he came to me one day and he says, Ryan, I don't like that I am this way, but I don't know how to do anything about it. And I'm like, well, have you ever asked yourself why you're that way? And he's like, what? And I'm like, actually took time to think about why you do what you do, what drives you to do. And this was all a foreign concept to him at that time. He's like, what? People do this? You do this? I'm like, yeah, I do this pretty regularly. It's how I am only a quarter of a douche instead of a full douche. Like, that's how I kind of regulate that, right?
I beat the shit out of myself all the time.
And so, well, that's different. Introspection and beating yourself up are...
Well, no, but it comes from that introspection. It's like, you know what?
Yeah. Sometimes we look inside, we don't like what we see. The hardest thing to do is stand up in front of the mirror and point out what sucks about you. But but that was a skill, and he was able to learn that skill, but it wasn't inherent in him. It wasn't something that was just present. He needed to be given and taught, hey, here's, and I'm no expert. I just explained how I do it for myself. But I'm like, I really try to separate my emotion and feeling about me. And I look at the behavior objectively. I look at the decision objectively as much as I possibly can, because I recognize those biases. I recognize that my inner ego is like, but you're the greatest. and my inner skeptic's like, dude, shut up. What are you talking about? You're not good at anything. Right. And there's that inner balance, but I don't know that it's naturally just there for as many people as we'd like to believe. I think a lot of people are capable of it once they become aware that it's a thing to do. At least that's been my observations so far.
Let me Google something.
Well, I think this is a great thing because I guess that this is surprising to me. I mean, I'm gonna have to do some research, man. I'm gonna have to try to find if this is true, because maybe I'm expecting things from other people that are unrealistic expectations. I don't want to do that. Expectations in general kind of suck because they set you up for disappointment. But if what you're saying is true, that would explain potentially a lot of things. So I'm gonna have to do some research. So thanks for keeping me up till 3 a.m. tonight.
I'm sorry. I learned about it myself not that long ago and went, that's fascinating.
I know you told me about this briefly this afternoon in our 30 call, and I could tell how excited you were about it.
Well, because I finally had a name and something to dig into that explained a feeling I've had for years. I have been nothing but frustrated. Why can I see it? And what I love about you two guys, one of the things that we share as a quality is you have what I call the vision. You can see the dots between the dots. You can see the origin of the thing before it was an idea, before it was a thing. You have that inherent ability in you, and I see that, and that I identify with that. I resonate with that, and I didn't have a way to describe what that was other than to go, I can see dots between dots. And then I learned this term, this metacognition, and I look into it and I'm like, oh my God, that explains it. It is the thinking about thinking. It's the abstract 15 layers of abstract thought that allow me to critically question the information I'm being presented, or the situation I'm facing, or whatever that is. And then to realize that, at least based on the brief research I've done, that that's kind of a rare air.
Actually, it's rarer than I think we're giving it credit for. I just did a quick bunch of Googling while we were talking. They're saying around about 26% of all samples, and this is Psychology Today, and there's a bunch of other ones I looked at the moment. They're saying that pretty much so 25 to 26% of people have it. Around about 75% have never experienced any kind of inner voice in a sample, in a conversation, or anything else. That's way freaking higher and a little scarier. And
Google fucking lies.
And would explain a lot. If that's the case, that would actually explain a lot.
Give me a link, man. Can you put a link in our chat or either chat?
Yeah, I'll drop it.
I need to put this to bed before I go to bed, and so the sooner I can find shit, the sooner I can go to bed.
I actually Googled how many people have inner monologues or have an inner voice. How common?
Psychology Today, it's a good source.
Yeah. The other one was the BBC. Was actually I like the BBC. The voices in the head saying about ourselves. 1/4 of their sample for feature was, or 3%, only 3% internal narration. So it's even worse in some instances. So there's 2, and that was literally just Googling. Did that actually show both of them? Yeah, it did. There's the second one. Yeah.
So we gotta do our homework on this and then come back around. But this might explain, because now here's my other piece on this. I believe our industry has a higher percentage of people with this inherent capability.
Oh, I mean, this I would wholeheartedly say that we've got to be way, way, way up. But I don't want to say we reverse that. We're like 75% have the inner monologue going, 25% probably wondering what the rest of us are smoking.
Well, and you can see how easily this can be used to think that it's superior to have this quality. That's not what it says.
No, that's not what they're looking at.
Use an inner voice and tell me how much you enjoy it.
Well, because some people will claim, like I just found another article that says it's a superpower.
See, I don't think. See, again, that to me is not one of those things. This all ties into this conspiracy theory and everything else that we're trying to figure out with humans. And this has always been that thing. I've always wanted to believe that everybody has this capability, that everybody has the ability to reason, that everybody has the ability to challenge their inner biases and everything else. But like listening and talking to you two, I'm like, probably isn't the case. So while we're talking, I'm like Googling it, I'm like, holy shit, it isn't the case. And that to me is a little eye-opening. We'll do some more of this one, but
this changes my reality, man. I mean, this is crazy shit.
And it might actually open up some of the logic and some of the reasoning as to why.
Well, and you know what led me to even getting to this information, if you will, and learning this term was continuing to try to understand how to cross the bridge.
Yes.
How do we cross the bridge? So and I appreciate you sharing these, because I'm going to read up on this and do a little more homework myself. But I actually got sent a article, or rather a chapter, if you will, of a book for that basically talked about this in the context of learning and e-learning. And so hopefully there's something I can tease out of that helps us get better at how we do awareness training, how we do.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck, man.
What do we ask people to do? We say,
just got a third one up.
Oh, another link. Fuck.
Sorry.
What happened?
No, it's good.
I just stuck another link up there as well. It's a shorter one.
He's linking. Just linking the shit out of me, man. He's like, link, boom, link, in your face. Click this. Oh shit, there wasn't my identity.
Oh, oops. But I wonder how much of this plays into how we've traditionally done awareness training, because we basically ask people to consult with their inner voice before taking action.
Assuming they have it.
If you don't have an inner voice to consult with, is that actually an effective means of training them?
Well, no. You're not connecting with anything that they understand.
think we might have figured something out here tonight, guys.
Started off with tinfoil hats and coronavirus, ended up basically in voices and psychology. I love it.
Why not? It's the shit show.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Squirrels.
This is awesome.
We're squirrels.
Totally.
This is how it works.
But I think, it does come back to that. Again, it comes back to that. I open the door. There's a freaking Huawei pizza dish. I've been told it's got this. I've been told it's got that. If I have no management over that or understanding or reasoning or rationale or anything else, I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with I'm pissed off that it's a Huawei pizza box. I'm pissed off that it's 5G. I'm pissed off that it's pointing at my house. I'm pissed off that it doesn't have an American flag on it. I'm pissed off that it's taken all of my data. I'm pissed off that we got coronavirus. Fuck it, the two are together. That's it. End of discussion. And if those percentages hold, or any of those percentages come close to hold, might explain some of the logic behind it. Somebody's just put Feynman technique on there. That triggered me. Sorry, I studied the Feynman stuff fairly extensively. So that's keys, no surprise.
Oh, Joe had an interesting take on the term superpower. This is a generic term for something intangible that's hard to teach.
Yeah, that would be an interesting. Very intelligent folks live in their own echo chamber. Never be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, well, and I think that all feeds into it, right? Because at the end of the day, a conspiracy theory is nothing more than one person's attempt to sway someone's opinion. And when that conspiracy theory is consumed, it's just another person's attempt to make sense of something.
Right.
Right? Because there's that inherent need to figure it out. I call them anchor points. You have to find the anchor point. Okay, I'm floating around in the water. I'm scared. I'm confused. I'm ill-informed. Anything that looks like it might explain it. And that's how I felt in the first couple of days of Corona. I'm like, shit, I can't get enough news conferences. You better hook me up. I need Dr. Fauci's phone number right now.
Right.
I got questions. Right. And I think, that's part of it is we're moving through that right now with more of the same. Right. And now the election's coming. And I think, it's going to get interesting what conspiracy theories emerge.
Oh, I'm doing, there's a few talks we've got over with Gabrielle. We're lining it up for several weeks out about, reality. How do you distinguish truth and reality? Doing some stuff with AFRL on the same thing, trying to actually work out. There's some tech that's actually coming out of Israel, some really good tech that we're working on that actually validates a lot of the stuff that's online, whether it's actually real or not. Yeah, like some really freaking good
source
tech.
vetting.
Whole bunch of interesting stuff.
Do you think that reality is relative to your ability to consult with your inner self? Because you see, my reality is whatever in the hell I tell myself it is.
Mm-hmm.
This is a whole nother show, bro.
Oh, that is. That would be a fun show.
I feel like I'm updating a spreadsheet here.
You gotta update it. Yeah, get it in there. That'd be a good one.
Holy shit. Yeah, I'm blown away. I'm not sleeping tonight, guys. Thanks.
All right.
That was never the intent.
Yeah.
No, I know, but it's good. It's because if you're operating under this understanding of reality, and then you find that your reality is incorrect, it's like, oh shit. What are all the things that I need to change, to readjust into this? I mean, you have to do a lot of research, but assuming that all the shit that we talked about is true. Yeah. Well, fuck, that's a lot of things to consider, man.
Well, it's especially when you were talking about it from like even an awareness training standpoint. If I have to take a step back and go, look, not everybody has that inner voice going, I shouldn't click it. I shouldn't click it. I should think before I click. I should think before. If people don't have that inner dialogue, then you have to train and teach very differently than you are teaching their subconscious in some ways. It's an entirely different set of discussions. Yeah. Right. Let alone everything else that we're dealing with. Yeah, all good fun.
That will be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was okay. Damn. All right. So the conspiracy theories around 5G, just to summarize, are bullshit.
Pretty much. Actually, let's put that. I think I put that link out. I'm actually going to put the link out. It's actually a really, really good link. I'll drop it out onto here. And the link.
So I wrote it up. We're going to call it. Here's the working title. Whose reality is it, anyways?
Oh, fuck. Ooh, mine. Here's.
And the description is who gets to decide what reality is.
No, I like that.
I'm gonna come with 2 pills, the red and the blue.
Oh, that's got to be. Yeah, totally. Oh, hell yeah.
So that's up on the shit show.
On the spreadsheet.
Show sheet, yeah.
Who's next week? Who's next week?
Next week's
me.
Evan.
Evan. Oh, splendid.
Yeah. My topic's just gonna be fuck you.
Well, is that directed at me for ruining your night, or
no? You take it wherever you want to take it. No.
You got those spare ones. There's all those extra ones. Just feel free to grab one of those.
See, it's the tinfoil. The tinfoil channeled all the thoughts.
I feel like I need to put the tinfoil hat back on, at least for the last.
No, and don't ever. Seriously, the I have no ill will directed towards anybody here, or chatting and whatever, because if anything, it's gratitude, man, because it's like, fuck, how much longer? I mean, I'm 49 years old. If I'm operating under this premise, even though it's not like earth shattering, right? My whole existence doesn't rely upon one factual thing, assuming it's fact, but it changes things. Right. And so the fact that somebody tells you or makes you aware of something like that is like, I'm grateful for it, man. I'm going to do a bunch of research and I'll be better for it. So it's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. This definitely gives the Thursday night homework, which is a ton of fun, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like it. I've got a couple of tabs open. I haven't shared all of them yet.
Hence why I was so excited when I talked to you earlier, Evan. I'm like, wait, what? Because for literally my whole existence, like even when I was a kid, I didn't quite fit. Why didn't I fit? Why could I see things that the adults couldn't? I didn't understand. I didn't, and eventually I just adopted, well, I'm just wired that way. And I guess I'm just weird, whatever, moving on. And to find out that I've got like a 25% tribe that I share.
Yeah. Those of us that have continual dialogues with ourselves over various. All right, this has got to come off. It's digging into my head.
I just want you to know, 2 strong hours.
I know you're mad. You're mad.
It's worth it.
Oh, you're mad. I love it.
The hair's so shot, the hat can't come off.
Omega Moose. That's it.
You're gonna have to sleep with that on.
Oh yeah, right. My wife, I told you at the beginning of the show, I don't know if it was like it or not, but my wife goes, I put this thing on, she just looks at me and goes, "What's that for?" I said to keep it traps the Rona and it keeps me from getting the Rona. She goes, "You're definitely not getting any Rona from me."
Or anything else.
Right. Nobody's
Well, and the cool thing, man, I don't know. You and I are going camping weekend after next.
True. This is absolutely true. I'm stoked for it.
We're going to have some awesome. Serious
pitches.
It's going to be
pitches.
It's going to be fucked up, man.
I will try. Well, we just have to have a balance. I can wear you out when we get into our conversation.
I don't understand balance. Dude, I don't understand balance.
Where are you guys heading to?
Apple River.
I'm bringing the puppy. The doggies
You're
coming.
Your dog?
Oh.
Should I bring my dog? It'll be a nice morsel for your puppy.
When you doing it?
I have
Labor
my dog will be nothing but calm and gentle with yours. But
you should come too, brother. 4th, 5th, and
you got
6th.
RV.
So Labor Day weekend. Yeah, now that you got an RV.
That we might have to do something like that.
Oh, holy shit! That would.
Well, that would be trouble.
We're gonna blow. I know we're gonna blow shit up.
I'll bring shit to blow up. I'll bring shit to blow up.
I like
That'll
it.
be fun. Well, tomorrow morning I leave at leaving at 7:30 to ride my bike by myself down to Lenexa, Kansas. When I leave 7:30, get there about 4:30, spend the night with my son. He's a police officer down there, so I got to give him some love, because he's a good cop for sure. He's just a wonderful person. So I'm gonna go down there, tell him I'm proud of him, whatever, and then I'm riding back on Saturday. So I'm gonna put like 1,200 miles on my bike in less than, I don't know, day and a half.
Shit, if I wasn't heading out Saturday, I'd swing across and come say hi. I'm actually, hang on, whoa. When you driving back?
Oh, from Lenexa, Kansas?
Yeah.
Saturday, I'll probably leave Saturday morning about 8:30.
I am going to be in Schofield, Nebraska. Scotts Bluff, Nebraska. That might actually be.
Where's Scotts Bluff?
I'm actually just about to find out. I'm just doing a quick. All right, ignore me. That's a fair way distance. Ignore me. That's like north. Yeah, don't worry about it. We're good.
Well, I don't know. I'm always looking for an excuse to ride some more.
Yeah, that's a big, way out of the way. All right, we'll have that conversation. We'll maybe have to talk offline.
I'm only marginally curious because Nebraska is not known for its rip-roaring good time. What on God's green earth is motivating you to go to literally the most boring state I've ever been to in my life?
Two things. One, we're going to give the RV a shakedown.
Okay.
And secondly,
nice. That's a good place.
Totally. There's a brew pub there, and what they let you do, you camp for free. You just come hang out with them, have food with them, have a drink, camp out the night for free, and then drive back. So we get to shake it out for 4 hours on the way out, put the dogs in it, get it set up as a computer setup, get all the other gear and stuff in it, take it out, have dinner, have drinks, kick back, hang out with local people in the brew pub, and then drive back again. So it's kind of it's a trial run and getting further away than just, running around Colorado.
Right. Awesome. That's awesome. Well, good.
And Nebraska's Nebraska's some cool shit, man. It's not like you've seen all of Nebraska.
Well, I'm also planning on driving by a couple of the weapons depots that are out there with a wireless antenna just to see what I can pick up, just for shits and giggles.
Just for S&Gs.
Oh yeah, I got the full spectrum analyzer, so I'll be seeing if we can influence any of the signals for sheer hell of it.
Well, and I'm overdue for a trip to Colorado, so at some point I'll be pinging you because
Totally. And come out and see. This lab, I was giving some shit to Jesse. Back in the UK years and years ago, there was this puppet TV show called Thunderbirds, and it was all about Thunderbird 1, Thunderbird 2 is go, and the mountain split apart and the road came up and Thunderbird dove off into the sky. Total amount of shit, absolute fun. So the lab is now going to be called Thunderbird 1. Lab 2, which is Jesse's place, where we've now just built out the second Nissan hut, and we've also got the explosive space out there. That's going to be Thunderbird 2, and the RV is now Thunderbird 3.
Nice.
Oh yeah. And Jesse's like, oh hell no, because one of the characters is Penelope, and she drives this pink Rolls Royce. So I'm trying to get Brett, who's a former 82nd boxing guy from the 82nd, to try that. Pink Rolls Royce and him. Not working so far. Got a couple of bruises from it. Oh, that reminds me. Geeks and chainsaws don't mix. Tried my hand at using a chainsaw the last couple of days to take some trees down over at Jesse's place. So we got some place to put the next building in. And yeah, it doesn't. Geeks and chainsaws don't mix. I failed. I'm now banned by Jesse from the chainsaw, the chipper, and the stump grinder. I managed to chainsaw my
found
shin.
on you, didn't it?
Oh, I got it on my shin. I chainsawed my shin.
Oops.
Yeah, and a pair of trousers. I got my side, my shin, and my t-shirt. I did pretty good.
My wife tries to tell me that stuff, but it never works for her.
Jesse's bigger than I, and he's from Nebraska. I kind of listen to him.
I'm allowed to use chainsaws on ladders, so I don't know what this geek and chainsaw thing is, but
holy shit! All right,
I just need to teach you right.
Yeah, that's probably part of it.
I blame Jesse. He didn't teach you right.
I won't tell him that.
Tell him this little scrawny toothpick motherfucker with tinfoil on his headset.
Oh, he'll be watching this at some point. Brett will be watching this at some point.
The 6-ounce security geek said this about you.
6-ounce security geek. You keep giving yourself good names today.
Oh, I know.
6-ounce security geek. What is it? Omega Moose.
No, somebody else gave me
Omega
that name. That's in the band.
Yeah, Omega Moose is awesome. I love that one.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
Gentlemen,
guys,
I love you both.
I gotta get. Love you too, man. I love you, Chris.
Read a couple articles and then go to bed so you are safe on the road, please. I care about you and don't want you, drifting.
Yeah, I'm gonna wear a helmet. Believe it or not, I know that one of our listeners gave me shit about not wearing a helmet on my last ride, so I'll wear a helmet this way.
I actually love the fact you're going to put a helmet on. There was one thing in this country that freaked me out was people go around in shorts, t-shirts, and nothing.
So t-shirts. This is all Chris. Anyone on chat right now that's like, hey, t-shirts, because I've seen it a couple times tonight. The ball's in Chris's court. He's working with a designer.
Yeah, I gotta get my. We're talking Monday.
Perfect. So soon,
awesome.
T-shirts soon.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. This is going to be a ton of fun. Yeah, in the UK, we all had to wear romper suits and helmets. So it freaked me out when I first came to the US. I'm like, yeah.
But how about California?
That's scary. That whole place. Well, I mean, so I had a good friend of mine in Atlanta that used to ride, and he had his jeans were Kevlar jeans, and he wore like a loose shirt, but it was Kevlar weave impregnated. So worst case scenario, he won't get so much road rash. It just, it's whatever it is. But yeah, it's scares out. Yeah, we kind of like you in one piece. So yeah, wear the bone dome, please.
Will do. Will do. Absolutely.
Love you guys.
All right, guys. Have a good